My name is Tim Hall, and I'm here at the New York City Horror Film Festival with our film, The Studio. And I was very lucky to be able to be here with my cast and my crew. My crew being one other person. It was a small, super indie, supernatural film that we made. So this was a project that came after I'd done a few shorts with my friend Chris Elliott. He has a really great eye, and whenever I need to shoot something, he always figures out how to do that. I had made a short film called The Photograph. That was kind of my first sort of serious short film. My friends and I had done a lot of sort of spoofs and parodies of things that we liked, and it was almost always horror stuff. And it wasn't until that previous film that I really tried to do something a little more serious, and that was actually scary and not just kind of a goof. My full-time job, what I do for a living, is I'm a book designer, and that's what I do to pay the rent, and it's also something I love. And I came to filmmaking pretty late. Luckily, these days the learning curve can be a lot shorter. You can pick things up online and through doing. There came a point where we were doing our own films and became sort of a small little unit. And the studio came about because my previous film was an adaptation of a ghost story by M.R. James. And I did a very sort of different take on it, but used that story structure. And I was reading other stories for inspiration. And there was an author named Robert Aikman. He wrote mainly in the 60s, very atmospheric, very odd, creepy stories that have a lot of atmosphere. And so I read a story called Ravissante, I think, that was about someone visiting a studio of a painter. And the painter was no longer alive, but the artist's widow was there and took this fellow through the studio, and it was all very odd and creepy. That idea stuck with me, of someone spending a night maybe in a studio where all kinds of odd things happened. Since my background is design, but also originally fine art, I love seeing movies that are about art, that show art, and use art as part of the storytelling. I always love when there's a painting in a movie. I love the idea of making art to be in the film and be part of the film. I spent a few weeks, maybe a month or two, writing it. Then I spent about 6 months making paintings. And the process was that I just put a call out on Facebook and a few other outlets and asked my friends to send me pictures of themselves with their eyes closed, as if they were sleeping. My idea was that this painter painted sort of a moment in time when the soul is escaping from the body. But if you only see one or two of the paintings, you think, oh, what a lovely portrait. It's sort of this reverie. But if you see them all together, you start to get kind of a bad feeling about how these paintings came to be. So basically, I just got all the reference I could from friends and started making paintings based on them, so that I could have them be dead in my film as paintings. I go through periods where I do, my day job, I'm always in front of a computer, but then there are moments where, I'll do some prints, or I'll do some actual handmade art. And so once I got back to doing some painting, they started to happen a little bit faster, and soon I was knocking out one a night, especially as I got towards the end of the process, and I just kept wanting more because I really wanted to fill out. I just kept trying to find more and more people that I could kill and put in my movie. I was like, oh, if I could just get a couple more victims in there, that would be great. Because sometimes when you're making, especially an independent film, there are moments where you just want to keep going and keep the momentum going. But I always had something to do. I could always make another painting, and so that was great. It kept me very focused on the project. For our schedule, I had 6 months of pre-production where I was doing paintings and making props and things like that, and figuring out some logistics. But for the actors, basically we just had a location for a weekend, and we shot everything with the actors over the course of 2 days. And so we found a nice rustic barn that was on Airbnb, and it was a great location, not far from Poughkeepsie. And so that's an easy train ride from Grand Central. So that was part of the planning, was to find something that the actors could get to. I could go pick them up, and then they could head home Sundays. We read together the night before and discussed how to do a few things. That Saturday morning we started shooting, and we shot until about 2 a.m. And then we did just a couple things Sunday morning, and then everyone went home. Color was important, obviously. We begin in the daytime where everything is very bright, and then we go into this barn interior where things are very dark and lit by lamp. Then night falls, and by the time the climax happens, it's in the middle of a snowstorm. It's gone from daytime to very dark blue, and then that has an abrupt cut where it jumps to the following morning, where you get an inkling of what the fate is of our protagonist, although I tried to leave it open-ended so that his fate wasn't 100% sealed. Last weekend, actually, I brought the film to another Hole in the Head festival, which is an amazing genre film festival, and this is my second festival with the film. I'm extremely happy to be in New York for it. My experience so far here has been tremendous. It's just a wonderful festival. It has a wonderful atmosphere where there's a huge amount of love, I think. You feel like there's a lot of love for horror films in general and the people that make them and the people that watch them. It was wonderful to have a screening here where everyone who helped make it could come. So this has definitely been a high point for me being here.